They always tell you downtown shopping is innocent. Macy's, a Starbucks latte, maybe a Bath and Body Works candle haul. That's what my wife claimed every Saturday. She'd grab her purse, flash that "I'm just running errands" smile, and disappear. Me? I was the gullible American husband, sitting at home watching ESPN and pretending my family life wasn't built on the kind of betrayal Shakespeare would have charged admission for. And then came that afternoon, the day I accidentally became both detective and stand-up comedian in my own marriage drama. Work let out early. The boss said, "Go home, enjoy your weekend," as if toxic love doesn't clock in at 9 and leave at 5. I thought I'd surprise my wife, maybe bring her Chick-fil-A, show her I still had a romantic bone left in my body. Instead, I stumbled into something that made Watergate look like a parking ticket. Downtown was crowded. Tourists with their fanny packs, teenagers with iced coffees bigger than their heads, buskers strumming guitars pretending they weren't 3 songs away from giving up. I walked block after block. No wife, no shopping bags, just me, sweating like a man in the first chapter of a bad revenge novel. And then, jackpot. Her car, parked suspiciously close to the college campus, like she was auditing Betrayal 101. I told myself maybe she wanted to use the cheaper parking, but my gut whispered, "Nah, man, this is infidelity dressed in a J. Crew cardigan." I crept along the sidewalk, rehearsing lines in my head. "Surprise, honey. Need help carrying bags?" Or my personal favorite, "Caught you cheating, didn't I?" A man rehearses comedy when his life feels like tragedy. The cafe was tiny, hipster style, the kind where baristas looked like philosophers who failed out of grad school. And there she was, my wife, my cheating wife, sitting across from a man I instantly recognized, Professor Martin, tweed jacket, smug face, the guy who once lectured at a dinner party about postmodern toxic love dynamics while eating my barbecue ribs. He leaned in, touched her hand like he was grating it. She laughed, loud. The kind of laugh she hadn't given me in years, the kind that felt like betrayal weaponized. I froze. In American culture, there's this expectation the husband either storms in guns blazing or collapses in tears. Me? I went conspiracy theorist. What if this wasn't just cheating? What if my wife and this professor were part of some underground cabal where housewives fake shopping trips while plotting the downfall of suburban family life? The thought felt insane, but so did seeing her smile at him like he'd just solved world hunger. I pushed the door open. A little bell rang, cheerful, like it was mocking me. The barista chirped, "Welcome in," as if I hadn't just walked into the twilight zone of infidelity. I marched over, adrenaline pulsing. My wife's eyes went wide, then darted to the professor, then back to me. Caught, trapped. "Shopping downtown, huh?" I said, louder than I meant. The cafe went silent, every student and yoga mom suddenly auditioning for the role of background witness in my toxic love saga. The professor cleared his throat, started some academic nonsense about collaborative projects, but I wasn't buying it. This wasn't collaboration. This was betrayal on draft with oat milk. She stammered, "It's not what it looks like." Ah, yes, the American anthem of infidelity. Every cheating wife since the founding fathers has probably rehearsed that line. But it looked exactly like what it was. Betrayal in broad daylight, in front of strangers sipping caramel macchiatos. I didn't slap him, didn't scream. Instead, I did the most American revenge act possible. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture. Boom! Evidence. Infidelity caught in 4K. She gasped, he flinched, and the barista whispered, "Oh my God," like I had just turned their cafe into a courtroom. And here's where it gets weird. Instead of bolting, I sat down at their table, ordered an espresso, sipped it slowly, stared at them like I was the FBI. "So," I said, "how's your little research project going? Studying toxic love? Hands-on experiment? My sarcasm dripped heavier than the coffee. The professor squirmed. My wife begged me to lower my voice. But by then, the entire cafe was hooked. We had an audience. And Americans love a show. They whispered, recorded clips, probably hashtagged it, cheating wife drama, before my espresso cooled. My life had officially become both tragedy and parody, and I was the unwilling star. The espresso hit my tongue like gasoline, but I didn't flinch. I had to look calm. Calm like a man who just found his cheating wife playing footsie with a college professor in broad daylight while the entire cafe turned into a live studio audience. My wife shifted in her seat, eyes darting between me and Professor Martin like she was trapped between Family Feud contestants. The professor tried to adjust his tweed jacket, probably thinking it gave him authority, but really he looked like a man auditioning for the role of villainous adulterer in a low-budget Netflix drama. "Look," he began, his voice quivering like a bad lecture on existentialism. "This isn't what it—" "Oh, spare me, Professor Infidelity," I cut in, loud enough for the barista to nearly spill a latte. "You're sitting here with my wife, holding hands like you're grading her on a pop quiz about betrayal. Guess what? You both just failed." The cafe erupted in whispers. A guy in a hoodie muttered, "Damn, this is better than TikTok." A yoga mom gasped so hard you'd think she just discovered gluten again. And me? I leaned back, sipping my bitter revenge espresso, feeling like I was both the detective and the stand-up comic in this tragedy of toxic love. My wife tried the classic American defense line, "It's not cheating if it's just coffee." "Oh, really?" That's like saying it's not theft if you only stole half the TV. I almost laughed, but my sarcasm had already taken over. "Just coffee?" I barked. "Then why's your hand under the table? What's next, Professor? Office hours in the lingerie section at Macy's?" She blushed. The professor turned pale. And suddenly I realized I had the upper hand. Not because I caught them, but because I was narrating this betrayal like it was a sitcom with a live audience. Americans love a hero, and at that moment, I was Batman in suburban khakis. But then the professor leaned forward, his voice low and conspiratorial, as if he'd been waiting for his moment. "You don't understand," he said. "This isn't just about us." The cafe leaned in. Even the blender stopped whirring, like the universe wanted the drama to breathe. "What do you mean, about us?" I asked. He glanced around nervously. "There's a group, wives, professors, a network of connections. We call it the Society." I almost choked on my espresso. Was this a bad Lifetime movie, or was I actually being initiated into the Illuminati of infidelity? My wife dropped her gaze, suddenly guilty in a way that screamed, yes, this was real. "The Society?" I repeated, my voice dripping with both sarcasm and disbelief. "What is this, a PTA meeting for cheaters?" "You think this is funny," he hissed, "but your wife is not the only one. Dozens of families, suburban marriages rotting from the inside. We meet here, at cafes, book clubs, college lectures. Cheating wives, lonely husbands. It's coordinated." The audience gasped. One college kid whispered, "Bro, this is like QAnon for relationships." And I just sat there, staring at my wife, who still hadn't denied it. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that my marriage wasn't just betrayal, it was a group project?" She finally spoke, her voice cracking like a soap opera actress. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. At first it was just shopping trips. But then Martin introduced me. The Society made me feel seen." I laughed, loud, bitter, manic. "The Society made you feel seen? I paid the mortgage. I bought the Peloton you never use. And you needed a secret cabal of cheating professors to feel seen?" The barista clapped. Actually clapped. Americans love revenge moments, and I was delivering like a prime-time drama. Someone even filmed me and shouted, "Say it again for TikTok, man." But here's where it twisted deeper. The professor smirked, suddenly regaining confidence. "You can mock us, but you won't stop us. Husbands like you, loyal, hard-working, naive, you're the easiest to betray. You worship the idea of family, but family is fragile. Infidelity is freedom. Betrayal is power." And there it was, the manifesto of toxic love, spoken like a villain rehearsing for a TED Talk no one asked for. My blood boiled, but my brain saw something else. A chance. "All right," I said, standing. "You want toxic? You want betrayal? You've never met a man with nothing left to lose. This isn't just about my cheating wife anymore. This is about revenge. And trust me, Professor, I'm about to go full John Wick on your little society." The cafe cheered like I'd just scored a touchdown. Phones went up, cameras rolled, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. Broken, humiliated, betrayed, sure, but also alive, because in America nothing sells like drama, and I'd just gone from victim to vigilante in front of an entire crowd of witnesses. The professor stood, panicked. My wife begged me to stop, but I was already out the door, adrenaline pumping, plotting my next move. This wasn't just marriage anymore. This was war. You know that moment in every conspiracy thriller where the hero decides he's either crazy or onto something big? That was me sitting in my Toyota Camry outside the cafe, replaying the professor's words. The society. It sounded ridiculous, like a Facebook group for suburban cheaters who also coupon. But the look on my cheating wife's face, guilt mixed with panic, told me it wasn't just latte-fueled nonsense. I went home, slammed the door, and paced my living room like I was in a Netflix docuseries called Betrayal, The Suburban Files. My wife texted me nonstop, apologies, excuses, crying face emojis. I ignored them. Infidelity wasn't just about love. It was about control. And if the society thought they could control me, they had another thing coming. This was about revenge now. So I did what any American man with a Wi-Fi connection and too much pride would do. I Googled it. The Society of Wives and Professors. Nothing. Secret marriage betrayal cult downtown. Just Reddit threads and conspiracy blogs that made flat earthers look normal. But then, jackpot. A post titled, "Toxic Love Underground, How Academia and Housewives Collude." I clicked. Some guy named TruthSeeker94 wrote a 3,000-word rant about how college professors seduce suburban wives, turning them into operatives of infidelity. It sounded insane. It also sounded exactly like what I'd just witnessed. Was I losing my mind, or had I stumbled into the Area 51 of marriage betrayal? The next day I followed her. Yeah, I became that guy. The suburban husband turned private eye, eating Cheetos in his car while tailing his cheating wife. She told me she was going grocery shopping. Cute. I watched as she drove, not to Kroger, not to Walmart, but straight back near the college. I knew it. She parked, walked briskly into what looked like a community center. My pulse spiked. I crept closer, heart pounding, until I saw it, a sign taped to the door. Book Club, exploring the dynamics of love and freedom. A book club. But in America, book club is often code for wine, gossip, and maybe, just maybe, plotting suburban coups. I pushed the door slightly open and peeked inside. There they were, 6 women, including my wife, sitting in a circle. And in the middle, like some cult leader in tweed, was Professor Martin. He spoke passionately, waving a paperback copy of some self-help drivel about toxic love and freedom through betrayal. I nearly laughed out loud. A book club? This was their society? My wife nodded along, eyes locked on the professor, like he was Moses handing down commandments on how to cheat without guilt. Another woman chimed in about how family was a social construct designed to trap women. A third raised her hand and said, "Infidelity isn't betrayal, it's liberation." My blood boiled. Liberation. Tell that to the poor husband at home doing laundry, thinking his wife is buying candles at Bath and Body Works. I wanted to storm in, expose them all, but I held back. Revenge is better when it's cold, and recorded on an iPhone. So I filmed. Every word, every smug nod, proof. That night I confronted her. She walked in with that guilty look, probably rehearsing another just coffee speech. I sat at the table, laptop open, video paused on Professor Martin saying, "Betrayal is not the end of love. It's the beginning of freedom." Her face dropped. "You joined a cult," I said flatly. "It's not a cult." She snapped, instantly defensive. It's a community." "A community," I barked. "Lady, it's a pyramid scheme of cheating. A support group for betrayal. You sit in a circle, listen to Professor Tweed preach about toxic love, and then sneak home smelling like Starbucks and lies. That's not self-discovery. That's infidelity cosplay." She tried tears. She tried shame. She even tried gaslighting me. "You don't understand. You've always been so controlling." But no, not this time. I wasn't the naive husband anymore. I was the whistleblower, the Edward Snowden of suburban betrayal. I stood, pacing like a man in a courtroom drama. Do you know what revenge looks like in America? It's not violence. It's exposure. It's going viral. One video, one clip, and your little society is toast. Family men across the country will thank me. She froze. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid, not of me, but of the truth getting out. And I realized I had power now. Her toxic love, her infidelity, her professor, all of it was leverage. "Here's the deal," I said, lowering my voice. "Either you come clean to everyone, your friends, your family, our neighbors, or I will. And I won't just tell them, I'll show them. Every word of your professor's nonsense. You want freedom? I'll give you exposure." She begged, she pleaded, but I'd already made up my mind. Revenge wasn't just about her anymore. It was about blowing the lid off the society. If this cabal of cheating wives thought they could stay hidden, they picked the wrong husband to betray. And as I watched her crumble, I felt it. That rush Americans get when they smell justice, even if it's messy. Betrayal had broken me, but revenge was rebuilding me. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just be a husband. I'd be the man who exposed the underground of toxic love. And maybe, just maybe, I'd burn their society to the ground. You ever picture yourself as the hero of a blockbuster? I never thought my role would be suburban dad exposing cheating wife cult. But America has a funny way of turning betrayal into entertainment. By the time morning hit, I wasn't just a husband. I was a man on a mission, locked and loaded with iPhone footage of the society's little book club of infidelity. Step 1. The town hall. Our small American town loves drama almost as much as it loves Sunday football, so I emailed the mayor, the PTA, the church group, even the guy who runs the local barbecue festival. Urgent, public safety meeting. Topic, cheating wives society. Half of them thought it was spam. The other half showed up just to see me crash and burn. By 7 p.m., the community center was packed. Folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, gossip thicker than gravy. My family sat in the back, her arms crossed, her eyes shooting daggers, while neighbors whispered like it was the Super Bowl of betrayal. I marched up front with my laptop, connected it to the projector, and cleared my throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice shaky but loud enough to echo. You think your wives are at yoga. You think your professors are teaching philosophy. But I'm here to tell you, they're conspiring. And I have proof. The room laughed nervously. Someone muttered, "This better not be another PowerPoint on fluoride in the water." But then I hit play. On the screen, Professor Martin appeared, waving his paperback and declaring, "Infidelity isn't betrayal, it's liberation." Gasps shot through the crowd like fireworks. One man dropped his donut. Another woman whispered, "Oh my God, Karen said she was at that book club." Phones went up. People recorded. This was going viral. I pointed like a preacher on Sunday morning. This is not just about my cheating wife. This is about all of us. Our families, our marriages, our trust. The society thinks they can redefine love, turn betrayal into some intellectual game. Well, not in this town. Not on my watch. The mayor leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Is that Professor Martin from the college?" "Yes, sir, I thundered. "The same man who teaches your kids about ethics while holding hands with housewives at Panera Bread." The room exploded in outrage. Husbands stood, fists clenched. Wives shifted uncomfortably. A guy in the corner yelled, "This is worse than the HOA fee increase." And then, like a bad movie twist, the doors flew open. Professor Martin himself stormed in, flanked by 3 women from the book club. My wife was one of them, her face pale but defiant. The room gasped. It was like Jerry Springer had come to life. "You're spreading lies," the professor boomed, trying to channel authority. "This society is about freedom, empowerment, self-expression." "Self-expression?" I shot back. "You call destroying families empowerment? You call turning betrayal into philosophy freedom? You're a fraud in a tweed jacket." The crowd cheered. Someone shouted, "Give him hell!" And for the first time in weeks, I felt the tide turning. This wasn't just my revenge anymore. It was collective revenge, American style. The professor tried to lecture about toxic love, quoting Nietzsche and Foucault like we were all sitting in his office hours. But no one cared. This was Main Street America. People wanted simple justice. They wanted to see the betrayers squirm. My wife finally spoke, her voice cracking. It wasn't about destroying family. It was about finding myself. The room groaned. A woman shouted, "Find yourself at Target, not with my husband's professor." Another man yelled, "We trusted you." And in that moment, my wife realized she wasn't just facing me. She was facing the entire community. I raised my phone high. "This video is going online tonight. Millions will see the truth. The society will crumble. Cheating won't be liberation. It'll be humiliation." The professor lunged for my laptop, but a group of dads blocked him. Phones recorded every second. Hashtags were already being born. #cheating wife exposed. #suburban revenge. #down with the society. The betrayal that once crushed me was now trending. And that's when it hit me. Infidelity had turned my life into a joke, but America loves a man who turns the joke back on his enemies. Betrayal wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning of a legend. The meeting ended with chaos. The professor fled, my wife in tears, the society in shambles. People clapped me on the back like I'd just scored the winning touchdown. One man said, "You saved us." "You?" Another whispered, "I'm checking my wife's book club right now." Later that night, I sat alone in my living room, quiet, tired, broken. Sure, but also alive in a way I hadn't been in years. My marriage was over. My wife had chosen infidelity and toxic love, but I'd chosen revenge, exposure, and freedom. And maybe that's the most American thing of all, turning betrayal into a headline and a broken heart into a battle cry. So here's my story. Internet. She said she was shopping downtown. But I walked in, and I caught my cheating wife with a college professor and an entire society of lies. And I didn't just survive, I exposed them. And in the end, that was better than forgiveness. That was justice.